Hi, I'm Todd Jones. I'm the host of the podcast, Press Box Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Mike DeCourcy. Mike talks about spending time with Skip Prosser when the late coach was at Xavier and later at Wake Forest.
When I was covering Hugs, and at the time, Skip Prosser was the coach at Xavier.
Right.
And Michael Perry was covering Xavier for the Inquirer. So, and he used to write all these wonderful stories about Skip. I mean, they were just like, and they seemed almost fantastic because like nobody could be that good a guy and that bright and that that well read and that it all seemed so performative from covering at the time the bad guy in town or the guy that so many people looked at that way, the black hat. And it did seem performative. And so this is what I say. You got to get to know people and do, because then I met Skip and he was that guy.
Yeah,
he was the best person you could ever meet.
And, he was probably my favorite coach I ever covered.
Yeah, I mean, you just couldn't meet very many better people than Skip. And he was everything that Michael portrayed him to be. But as I said at the time, it seemed like it couldn't be real. But you go into it, and then I meet Skip. And a great story about that. Maybe my favorite story that I ever did for Sporting News Magazine was about Jay Williams, who's now at ESPN. He was then, in 2001 and 2002, the best guard in college basketball. And in 2002, he was on his way to National Player of the Year. And we wanted to do a story like we were very much a nuts and bolts kind of thing. We did much more with the actual games than our competitive publication did, which was more into the people.
Right.
And so we wanted to do a story about what was it like to prepare to play against Jason Williams and now Jay Williams. And I called 4 different schools that were on their schedule in January, and every one of them turned me down. I didn't get turned down for anything. Like if we wanted to do a story, like people are like, okay, the door's open, come on in. And no one ever turned down the Sporting News at that point. And so we wanted to do that, and they all said no. And then, okay, what's next? Skip's Wake Forest is on the schedule. So I call Skip, and he's like, oh yeah, come on down. Yeah. It'd be great. And he opened the door and he did all this stuff for me, and he let me sit on their meetings and all the rest of that. And they ended up giving Jay about 31 points or something and losing at home. But it's just like he was like a regular person. He's just and I still love that story because I think I did a good job writing it, but also because it meant I got to spend 3 days with him chatting about basketball and the Steelers and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, I remember Skip. I got to know him well when he was an assistant for Pete Gillen, and I was covering Xavier basketball. And so you get to know the assistants, right? That's how you're learning your beat. And so we ended up talking about literature and his beloved Steelers. And, but again, you got to know this person. And then when they become this thing that's a public figure as a head coach, you have enough education about who they are and where they're coming from. I think there's a mutual respect that's built up. So then when you're recovering the beat, you have a little better understanding of what's going on.